Hey, what's up, guys? This is Brandon here. I'm just making a video, basically just covering what I thought was a pretty interesting finals in the Regidrago mirror. So we still have about two events in this format, or three events I think, because there's Rio and Birmingham, and then San Antonio. So Regidrago should still be pretty relevant for most of the regions. Sorry, Australia. There were a few moments here that I really just wanted to highlight. I wouldn't say a lot of them were crazy complex plays, but I do just kind of want to give my insight on certain plays and just how I guess as a Drago player I would navigate certain positions that you may see a lot of the time. First thing I really want to discuss is so Cal Connor's hand here is research, prime catch up, grass, superior, Regidrago, ultra ball, and nest ball. So in this turn, Cal Connor actually has a choice between going. He could go nest ball for Drago attached to it, and then he could go ultra ball for Squawkabilly. However, this is a hand that he decides not to Squawkabilly, and I wouldn't either. So the big reasons for this is one, having a supporter drastically changes the quality of your hand. So if you don't have a supporter on your opening hand, you should almost certainly be looking at Squawkabilly. However, if you do have a supporter, then you should be looking at what value does Squawkabilly give you on turn 1. And here, the thing with Squawkabilly is we're not really getting that much value because we already have a Drago V-Star. We have an Ultra Ball that we could use for an attacker instead. And depending on the top deck, we could Ultra Ball away the top deck as well and then use the Prime Catcher. Additionally, Squawkabilly is a Pokemon that can be quite risky because it can give our opponent opportunities to use 2 Trifrost because we already have Mew in play. So when you factor all those things in, I definitely don't think it's worth using Squawkabilly. I would say it's very considerable if we had, if we didn't have research and instead we had just some other random card. But even then, I would probably just go Nest Ball, get the Pokemon attached, and then just hold the hand if I had Cleffa in deck. Because then next time I'll just go Ultra Ball for Cleffa, and then Cleffa. But I really do think that in a situation like this, you gotta understand when you're not going to go for the Squawkabilly. I think this is just really good recognition to just notice that Squawkabilly is just not really worth it. Okay, so the next big play that that I wanted to highlight was in this position here. Cal Connor, he is not V-starred or anything. He is up 2 prize cards, and he decides to use Rolling Iron. So I think this is a really good play, and some of you newer Drago players might not go for this. A lot of you might be tempted to go V-Star to grab the Prime Catcher, and just use Egg for 2 prize cards. So the problem with that is it does give Callie openings to win the game. So let's say we go for that, we use our V-Star, that happens, and then Callie just goes Iono, Rolling Iron. We're up 2-4 in prizes. We don't have anything guaranteed. We could easily just brick from the next 2 draws and then just lose over 2 turns. So either another Iron into Phantom Dive or a lost impact on our lone Drago possibly. So there's really some openings to lose the game in that situation. Whereas if we don't use the V-Star here, we know that not only are we guaranteed to get at least a 4 from the Iono, but we know that if we get lost impacted, we have a pretty easy return knockout. In fact, we can use Rolling Iron for the knockout, which is really useful. A Rolling Iron, especially with a Regidrago V-Star, would almost instantly win the game on the following turn if a lost impact happens. What ends up happening, though, is I believe Callie does end up going for the lost impact, and then Cal Connor responds with the Mew. And with the Mew here and the Regidrago on the bench, this made Callie scoop because it was essentially checkmate. With the Mew being untouched, if the Regidrago is knocked out, the Mew will win the game. And if the Regidrago is not knocked out, then it can V-Star to grab Fire plus Prime Catcher or Energy Switch or whatever. And so so if a knockout happens at all, then Kali will lose. I could see Kali maybe gets Gudra, Prime Catcher, Iono, and then it gets the Pult the turn after. I guess that's the one way that the game could be winnable. But I honestly forgot from here if there were any Ionos left. I don't think Kali had anything in hand. So without anything in hand, it's really difficult to get anything done. So it's a very slim margin to win the game. And even then, I don't think that would be enough. It statistically just would lose. So Kali decided to just scoop this game. Okay, so the next situation is Calclonic yet again has a situation where so this is the hand. This is after a research on turn 1. I forgot what we have in the discard. We have Giratina and Kyurem in the discard already. So from here, we could go for the Squawkabilly. However, Calclon decides to hold this hand. Well, he doesn't hold the hand. He goes for the Ultra Ball, discarding the Mew and the Rod, and grabs the second Regidrago. And just holds the rest. So as I said, a big thing is going to be having that supporter. Because there's already one Iron and one Research in the discard at this point. The odds of actually seeing a supporter from the Squawkabilly is not that high. And if we're not seeing a supporter from Squawkabilly, then we'll either have to V-Star for a supporter, or we essentially just play the Squawkabilly for no reason. Because it's not like many of these cards we immediately need. The only card that we immediately would need is Regidrago V, which we could just Ultra Ball for anyway. So this is why Cal kind of went for that. Additionally, not having Squawkabilly will make it a lot harder for Kali to go for a Gudra win condition. Because ideally, if you're using Gudra, you still want to win in 3 attacks. And without any Pokemon under 200 HP, it's going to be a lot harder to win with 3 attacks using Gudra. In fact, it's not even possible. You would need to go Gudra once into Phantom type twice to pull it off. So it is doable with that, but only with that combination. Anyway, I think it's really smart to recognize not to squawk. And some of the newer players might just be obsessed with drawing a lot of cards, but a lot of the time you have to consider, what am I expecting on average from these cards, and is that actually going to be worth it? And in this situation, I don't think it's worth it. So after this, the next big part in the game is okay, so here, Kali has a choice of going for the so Kali uses Research, and Kali ends up missing the energy to attack. So Kali has the choice of going for the V-Star and getting the attack off, or passing. So in this situation, Kali does decide to go for the V-Star, and I think this is correct. So the options you have to consider is, if Kali passes, there's a good chance that Kali's playing from behind. Calcon might take the 2-prize lead. He already has the Giratina V-Star on the discard. He just needs Fire and Energy Switch on the Drago, which is not the craziest to ask. Especially since we know that he must have at least something playable in the hand, or prize the Squawk. Otherwise, the Ultra Roll would have grabbed the Squawk if the hand was really bad. So it's like just another thing, like really important information where you can kind of infer information about the quality of your opponent's hand. So yeah, Kali would just assume that Calconna's hand, unless the Squawk is prized, Calconna's hand's got a draw supporter, or something that draws cards. Otherwise, there is no world in which Calcon would not go for the Squawkabilly, because then the value of the Squawkabilly would have been high enough. So in this situation, both players are generally assuming that for the most part, their opponent is going to be making optimal decisions. So So that means Callie would be expecting supporter at minimum. And also cards that are better than the Mew and the Rod. Which the Rod's not very good, so the Rod could easily just hit the discard. The Mew, clearly the other cards are probably somewhat playable, because the Mew could have easily hit the board. If they weren't playable, the Mew would have been held. So the other three cards must all have at least some function in the hand. So, from that, the real reason why Callie wants to use the V-Star is that going for the V-Star here will likely force the V-Star out from Cal Connor. So not only will Callie take the lead, but the V-Stars will both be exchanged. And with both V-Stars being used, that is a favorable position for Callie with the prize lead. And of course, Cal Connor could get the knockout without it, but hitting another energy, hitting another Grass of Fire, the Drago double E switch, it's not that likely, honestly, with one in the discard already. For the next turns, because realistically you're only seeing 11, 12 cards. 12 if you see, well, I guess 13 with the top deck, because you have the top deck, Research, Serendipity, so that's 11, plus 2 Ogerpons maybe. So with all that, I don't think, on average, Cal Connor would get everything to get the attack. So I would expect Cal Connor to have to V-Star. So yeah, as long as getting rid of this energy is going to force the V-Star from Cal Connor, this is definitely a position where the V-Star is worth it. So what ends up happening later is, I believe Cal Connor does eventually have to, he does V-Star over here at some point. Okay, so here Cal Connor ends up having to V-Star on the following turn after research and everything. And Cal Connor ends up having to grab Superior, and he also grabs Super Rod because I believe with only 2 fire energies and the Super Rod being prized, Cal Connor was, I guess, kind of worried that if Callie took out this Regidrago, and then Cal Connor had to use Radiant Charizard as the next attacker, then he wouldn't have a follow-up to take all the attacks to win the game, because the Drago will take 2, the Zard will take 2, and then there won't be NG for the Drago. I don't really feel like he probably could have gone away without the Rod, but I don't really think that was much better anyway, so I probably would still grab the Rod as well. With the V-Star being used here, this ends up being quite a poor position. Yeah, a lost impact happens. Callie ends up missing the attack, but on the following turn, Cal Connor also does not have the attack. And then Cal Connor ends up going into Cleffa, then using Prime on the Radiant Charizard. And Callie ends up hitting the Prime Catcher and taking out the Regidrago. And then from there, the game's essentially over. This Drago is unchecked at this point with 2 prizes left. And there's Cleffa and Radiant Charizard, so Phantom Dive can even win the game. So the game is completely over at this point. Okay, so in game 3, Cal Connor started with just Attach Plus. Cal Connor's hand's terrible. And here, Callie has a decision to Iono or not. So let's see if we can get a good hand. Okay, so yeah, this is the hand. So as we can see, Callie's hand is not good. Let's just say that. So here, you have 2 options. You can either Iono or not Iono. So you gotta think about the 2 options. So if Callie does not Iono, what is Callie hoping to get? Well, Ultra Ball's pretty good. Gets rid of 2 dragons. Vessel's not the worst. You get rid of 1 dragon. And then Research. But you also lose 2 energy switch. And the boss. Looking at that, there's not really many draws that solve our hand next turn. Like, we don't have a good hand by drawing the card. So I think the Ino is forced here. Additionally, although we know that Cal Connor's hand's terrible, if there is a supporter in that hand, Cal Connor's hand is significantly better than ours. Because on average, with our top deck, unless we top deck Ultra Ball or Vessel or Research, we're just going to slam Iono down next turn anyway. So looking at the size of the deck, roughly 80% of the time, we're just going to be slamming down Iono next turn. And with Cal Connor's hand, we know that there's, from the cards, we know that there's no Ultra Ball, no Nest Ball, nothing of that sort, or any of these basics. The odds that Cal Connor has a supporter is pretty high when you factor in all those cards. So, with the fact that we have to Iono 80% of the time, and the odds that Cal Connor actually has anything playable is probably at least 60%, is my guess. Yeah, like, it might even be 70%. Yeah, I don't think there's a choice here. I think you always have to Iono. It's a painful decision, but it is necessary. So just a quick addition. Yeah, this is from after editing. After reviewing this part, I realized I didn't clarify well enough with the Iono. So what I mean by 80% of the time of playing Iono, I mean that 80% of the time we are not getting any value with this current hand. So if we top deck Earthen Vessel or Ultra Ball, we will be playing those cards and we will get some value from the hand before the Iono. So the times we actually play Iono is more like 90-something%, since the only time we would not play Iono is if we top decked exactly Research. Okay, the next thing I wanted to point out was Cal Connor here. On this turn, I'll see if I can pull up. Oh yeah, it was here with the Nest Ball. So after the Nest Ball, Cal Connor drops the Ultra Ball as well. And Cal Connor opts for Giratina as the Ultra Ball. This is before Research or anything. So some players might go grab a basic. However, I think it is correct to be greedier and grab your dragon attackers. And out of all the dragon attackers, Giratina is generally the best one to have as your opening attacker. It's universally really strong. You don't want to attack into Cleffa anyway, so it doesn't really matter that it's terrible into Cleffa. Against everything else, it's on average just going to be the best one. So the reason you grab Giratina over, let's say, the Cleffa, because the Cleffa would be really good here. But the reason Cal Connor grabs the Giratina is just the odds of finding Cleffa is a lot higher. You have the Nest Ball and everything. And number two, the discard's already here. So even though there's a chance that we don't see anything like Cleffa, I think it's worth taking that risk. So what you'll see is that Cal Connor ends up researching into this hand, which is pretty good for the next turn, not very good for this turn, and having to pass on that. I probably would have considered the energy switch off the Pheasantipity immediately, and just accept that if my Drago goes down, the game is over. And it would have at least played slightly better against Iono. But over here, you see that Cal Connor just passes. So, overall, maybe he ended up getting punished in the end for not having Cleffa. Like, if there was Cleffa, looking back at the hand, we'd be able to go Temple, Cologne, Vessel, Fail, or whatever, switch, go into Cleffa, draw 5. And that'd be a pretty good position. But I think that the overall payoff with that Giratina is so high because the odds of finding Cleffa is quite good. So on this turn, Callie has some big decisions. So Callie actually gets the first attack in this game. And gets everything here. Well, actually, Callie is missing the dragon. And Callie ends up using the V-Star to discard a dragon. But the big thing I want to point out is when Callie V-Stars over here. So I think, of course, that I think Callie is definitely correct to V-Star and everything, because I think this attack's really important here. It's definitely worth it, especially since Callie can get the Goodra, which Callie does end up going for in the end. The thing I would criticize is probably, I don't think I would have benched the Regidrago here. So the reason for that is, if this Drago V-Star gets knocked out, our position is terrible. But additionally, getting rid of the switch here allows a very easy gust stall liability. So for example, if Cal Connor just has energy switch, evolve Prime Catcher on the Drago, the game's in a really bad position. I guess you can argue that KOing the V-Star is just so bad for Kali. However, with the V-Star used, there wouldn't be an opportunity to use double Prime Catcher anyway. So Cal Connor could easily just hold with just the V-Star and the Pheasantipity on board. And I feel like if Cal Connor just went Prime Catcher and Gudra, the game would be over anyway. There wouldn't even be a need for a V-Star in any form. Quick note here. So the reason why Gudra is better than the Alon Executor is because getting the first attack on a 2-price Pokemon here is already putting Kali over 50% to win this game. And Cal Connor needs a lot to get a knockout on the Regidrago V-Star. The play that ends up happening is the Drago's there. Cal Connor does end up going for the V-Star, gets Prime Boss, and takes the KO on the Drago. However, the problem with this is I actually think Kali was still winning here in this position. If Cal Connor had the Gudra option, I think just going for the Gudra on the Drago would have been better, to be honest. But looking at this position, Kali makes a massive mistake because promoting this Drago was really bad because there were 2 Teal Mask Ogerpon prized, so there was no attack possible this turn. I think Kali had to promote the Ogerpon and use it to retreat into Clef for this turn. With Cal Connor already down, with only 1 energy on board, getting energy plus energy switch plus a Alolan Executor discard and flipping heads is so unlikely that Kali basically always wins this game if Kali gets into Clef for this turn, attaches to Drago, and can convert into an attack next turn. So I don't agree with this promote, and what we end up seeing is this does end up costing Kali the game at some point. Kali ends up having to pass here with the Drago on the active. Cal Connor ends up getting the E-Switch and getting the knockout. And then we end up getting into the same position on the following turn where Kali has the Cleffa on the active and the Drago on the bench, just like the position I said that we should have done the turn before. If Kali did this correctly, Cal Connor would probably have needed to get back-to-back Executor flips to win the game. So I think this was a really big mistake. And overall, I think this was the most important play of Game 3. So, of course, there are other things. As I said, I think the only thing I think I would criticize outside of that was probably benching the Regidrago V that early. I probably wouldn't have. But really, it was just that and not promoting the Ogerpon on that turn that really changed the outcome of this game. I forgot to have this originally, but the actual ending of the game ended up being that Cal Connor got the switch on the last turn. We can see Cal Connor got the switch, energy switch, and decided to go for the Alolan Executor. And the reason for this is Kali already showed there was a boss in her hand that Kali was willing to play. Odds are Kali has a boss or a prime, and if Kali just has the last energy switch with how many cards are left in deck and gets the KO on the Drago, there's a very good chance that Kali just sweeps the last 6 prizes. So this is why Cal Connor decided that the 50-50 was going to be the best chance. And as we see, Cal Connor got the tails, and it was and was a little bit excited, but it was quite a crazy moment. So congratulations to Cal Connor for that. That's just about it for this analysis. If you have any questions about it, feel free to comment. I didn't really go over everything. There were some other small things, but I didn't think they were that relevant, so I just skipped over them. I've also put my socials in the description. I also have a Metafy, so consider checking it out if you're interested in getting coaching. Anyway, I think that's it. I'll see you.